Hello there, welcome back to my channel, Snips by Kelly. I'm Kelly and we have made it to Monday. Tonight I have the next 100-page scrapbook layout share, part 3 of 5 of my nostalgia series in honor of my time with Close to My Heart, where I share 100 pages a week until we reach 500 pages and say goodbye to Close to My Heart. Here we are again. Yay, it's Monday. Monday has become my favorite day of the week. So we are on number 3 of 5 in terms of the 100-page shares. So in honor of my time in Close to My Heart, I decided to share 100 layouts a week for 5 weeks until the closing of Close to My Heart, to share inspiration and a little bit of history of the pages and the creations and the papers and all of the things, the trends from Close to My Heart. And it was so hard. I said this last week. It is so hard to narrow them down. I want to show all of them. In fact, today, in order to keep it to 100, I had to take the companion pages out of some of them because I wanted to show you some of the paper lines. But if I kept the companion pages in there, then I had to weed out other ones. So I think I could have done 10 Mondays of 100-page shares. There's so many. So I'm excited. And without further ado, let's just get rock and rolling. So I'm going to move these aside here. And then we're going to start with an oldie. This is one, I believe I showed a couple Jack layouts. Let's make sure that we can be kind of up close here. If I get too close, I'll move back. I'm sorry I have to keep this in the page protector. It's one of the only ones, but it's because it has an interactive book. So I remember last time it was all the rage back in the day to have little interactive books that were held together with twine. So here's my handsome husband. And I have a little book here of him in Telluride. So we were in Telluride, Colorado, and he was just looking all handsome there. And we had the little mountain scene. I did have to cut these little peaks out of the cricket. And then, of course, as always, we ended up getting great snow-capped mountains later with cricket. Most of these pieces are stamped and fussy cut out, and that's just the way we did it back then. But it was a wonderful collection. It was so popular. Since we're on that topic in Telluride, this is my husband and I getting onto a ski lift at a mountain in Telluride. And this was a single page where I did cricket writing around the outside, added all my odds and ends of ribbon where I just only had a little bit left on each spool, and added it to a cutout heart and then cut around the ribbon and simply just said, "You and me." So basic. It was long time ago, but I loved it. So this was called You Are Enough. And those who are familiar with me know that I do something called a bash. They're online events. Let me just get this just right here so you can see the whole thing. Online weekend events called a bash. And a bash is when we choose a special project, and it's usually a lot of pages, and we go into a private group and I pre-record all of the pre-prep steps needed to create all of the pages. So the straight cutting, the thin cutting, the splattering, the inking, the coloring, whatever we have. And then my customers and paper crafting friends in my downline have about a month or so to work through those videos, and then we have a culminating event where we have games and prizes, and we spend 2 days online virtually putting together the fruits of our labor. So You Are Enough was a National Scrapbooking Day special with this great gold foil speckly paper, and it also had holographic. I added holographic paper to it, some vellum and some holographic paper, and we had these gorgeous butterflies, large ones, stitched ones, and then added a few cricket flowers. The background is a background that you've seen before, a nice triangle pieced background in the back, but the collection was stunning. And that addition of the specialty papers, metallics, the holographic papers was just gorgeous. So we did a little bit of thin cutting here with a little scalloped thin cut that we have. And again, those holographic papers, it's just not appreciated until you see them in person. They're absolutely gorgeous. We did a lot of inking on the edges of the flowers, tone on tone, very simple grid background, but that holographic paper just pushed it over the top. I actually did choose quite a few of You Are Enough just because it was so pretty. Super basic companion page here, but loved the wheel, adding the circles behind the pie shapes, and then adding the photos in there. And then again, these are our layered butterflies, and I actually think even though there's hardly anything left on the shop site, I actually think there might be some of those still, maybe. They're so gorgeous. There's layered small ones and layered large ones. And all of the stickers in the You Are Enough set were just embedded with a copper, silver, and gold. Here's another basic layout that you've seen me use over and over again, shopping my own patterns, scalloped frames, which I'm famous for, using some of that wonderful You Are Enough embedded cardstock. It was actually embedded cardstock for the circle in the background. There's another one of those layered butterflies, and the stickers on the sticker sheet also had the gold metallics in it. It was so stunning. It was just a hit all the way around. This next one was actually a launch project, and the reason that I pulled this one out is because I love that chalky black background paper that they gave us, and it was introduction of some major white gel pens. So making the stripes and the distressed tattered lines in the background, and then it was a party theme called Cake Day. So we did a lot of extra little things like making horn blowers by folding paper. We did a lot of little marker techniques where you shaded in the background and then made stripes with your marker, shaded in the background and made dots with your marker to make it look like it was actually embedded in the thin cut. We did some tri-blend markering over the tops of some sentiments and some wonderful splattering by making dots with the white gel pen. That was a lot of fun technique for Cake Day. Another Cake Day here, a single wreath style, classic wreath style, but the wreath was made by I believe we laid a paper plate down and just drew dotted lines around with the paper plate, did a lot of little rubbing and inking in the background, and then stamping with some little foof stamps. Almost all of these outer pieces, aside from a couple that are stickers, were stamped, and the technique was added with markers and or stamps. So you can see we did some flipping over of the stamp and using the back side of the stamp to shade the back of the presents, and then we actually added little doodles and things with the marker to make the presents all look different. So that's why I chose that one to highlight. One more Cake Day. The reason I chose this one, it's a super simple layout that isn't anything fancy to show, but what they gave us is this die cut background that had all of these little ice cream cones cut out of it, and then they gave us little circles to put behind the ice cream cones. And actually, I can't remember if they gave us the circles for behind the ice cream cones or they used the circles for something different, and I decided to use the circles behind the ice cream cones. I think that might have been it. And then some little dot, dot, dot foof stamping with our tri-blend markers and some great ice cream cones that I think were off the Cake Day digital collection. And I liked the dimension of backing that grid and that, you know, cut overlay, die cut overlay in the background. One more Cake Day, and again, not a fancy one, a basic gutted frame in the background. The only reason I wanted to show this one is using banners on the base layout, oversized banners, some with circles cut out, some with stars come out, some cut out, some with a frame, some out of pattern paper, some out of cardstock, and then having that be a nice focal piece on top with your featured photos down below. Super simple one, but it's a great idea for reduplicating that's really, really easy. Going way back, I think, and somebody out there is going to know this, but I think this was the introduction of our very first season mix-in pack. and it was during COVID. And so I made this little cell phone. I was teaching online and doing online videos. And then this was the crew, my lovely, lovely, wonderful friends and teachers from close to my heart. So we had Jill Broadbent, and of course we have President Monica Wihangi, and then Christina Livingstone and Karen Pedersen, who all taught classes online during COVID and just kept our spirits up, kept us working through COVID. So I made this little Cricut laptop, and it's just a simple background, some Cricut flowers, and then the little cell phone. And this was my Snips by Kelly group, and we were doing a lot of online classes at that time to keep our paper crafting going. Now I have a series called Documented, very old. One of the very first layouts that I did, and I'm a little embarrassed, but yet I love it still because it was one of the first ones that I've created. And we did it on craft paper, but we had pocket cards that had tabs. And there were packages of these pocket cards. And I mean, there was a ton of these pocket cards in the packages, and they had little tabs on top. So I did a whole workshop trying to find ways to use those pocket cards in different ways. So I toggled a couple here, I put some in a pocket, and they had cute little sentiments on the top, and it was just fun. I did love the colors in that. It was really muted tones. I did do a tiny bit of stamping on some corners with the stamp that coordinated with the set. There was a Stampin' Thin Cut that came with it as well. But again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pocket cards just to be the great background on this really cute brick paper, adding a few flowers and sort of toning down some of the busy papers there. I thought those little tabbed pocket cards were great. One more with those tabbed pocket cards. And I love this because I had discovered these little dandelions, and I love the linen paper with the dandelions, and then still again adding those pocket cards. And again, back then everything was round corners. We rounded and rounded and rounded corners. So that was really fun. That was called Documented. No idea what year it was, but it was a long time ago. This one was called Backyard Bliss. The reason I pulled this one forward is the simplicity. Like I always hear paper crafters say, I think I'm going to move these over here. I think it's giving me a little bit of a shadow. I might move that. Okay, maybe that's a little bit better there. Okay. So this is, I'm always saying, you know, hearing people say, I just need simple, I just need fast. We have 3 pieces of paper up here torn, 3 pieces of, 3 pieces of paper down here torn, added a die cut and added a couple flowers, and the rest are stickers, and just tucking the little garden stickers inside like you're in a garden. So cute. I loved that, how simple that was. Okay. This next one was from a long time ago as well, and you'll see a pretty heavy theme running through a lot of my beach pages because these are my favorite Cricut flowers, and I love them so much, and I believe it. They're off of our States collection, and if you look really closely, there's some great flowers on our States collections. And so Seaside had this great stamp set. Oh my word, it was so cool. It had the fence and the lighthouse, and I did a little toffee inking around that, put that inside a porthole that I've used with many of the beach pages, and just made this big cluster with the tropical fish up the center. And we had this great scallop border that I've shown before that we received that was super fun, and lots of makers used it in lots and lots of pages. And that one was called Seaside. This was a basic, simple one that the reason I'm showing it is because it was in the earlier days of Cricut where we were learning how to use Cricut Pen. This was called Oh What Fun, and Oh What Fun had this really busy, wide stripe, and everyone was like, well, we love it, but it's really difficult to use. And so I got the idea to make the sentiments on the Cricut. You could have handwritten those, or if you're one who's really good with calligraphy, but you are bar, the water to my ocean, the cherry to my sundae, the glaze to my donut, etc. and so on, the twinkle in my eye. One of my little granddaughters here, and we had a little stitched shaker circle, and then I cut some of the die cuts that came with this collection apart, and it just made a cute focal page. I loved that. This next one, not fancy at all, but it was part of a National Scrapbooking Day collection, and it was called Blue Skies. The reason I'm showing this one is it was a cut above kit that are very simple pre-cut kits that people can buy and put together without having to own a lot of product or supplies or tools. And so you basically can pull the kit out and you can put it together in no time flat. And I liked to show how to change them up and make them your own. So I took the pieces that were in the pre-cut kit and I added some scribble circle rings around the outer side and just some basic circles, quickly and easily punched out some circles, added it with a few stickers and called it good. And it turned out to be a super playful and fun set. Now I do have I have a video on how to make scribble circles that are attached if you love using scribble circles, cut scribble circles from the Cricut on your pages. So Blue Skies was that last one, and I did pull one more Blue Skies. Again, a very basic, simple one. Blue Skies was from a long time ago. The only reason I pulled this one out was because of the gorgeous pattern paper. We had two pattern paper sheets, and they actually were the same. So they actually look like this, and it had the beautiful embedded florals in the bottom, and then it had a built-in blue banner that had the wonderful already in it. Well, if you're going to use two of them, you didn't want both of them to say wonderful, wonderful. So I showed my paper crafters how to not mess up that gorgeous background and be able to do a different play. And so by having them offset and you had a color balance there, and then putting a dovetailed banner inside that and a sticker over the top, you would have been none the wiser to know that you were covering up the wonderful up here at the top. And I loved that. Just did some Cricut kites and backed it with some of that gorgeous Blue Skies paper. A lot of fun. Let's get into some masculine. So some of these are single. They weren't really single pages, but in order to stay under the 100 pages, I had to just bring a couple of them out. But this was called Timber. So I made the Timber Mountains, and I backed this one with some of the timber pages, these cutout mountains, and then I left this one as the corner. So I just cut the squares and cut into triangles, did some splattering with the shimmer brush in the back, and then on the Timber Cricut collection, I think it was the Timber collection or one of our other collections, we had these cool clips. And so I used some of that silver foil paper, and it just was a super simple page that turned out really cute and masculine. I did a couple more of Timber using those same mountains in that same pattern that you've seen over and over and over, but just with a different twist. So again, the triangle patterns in the background, using some tags, adding some trees, using some mountains, and then again, here is moving forward and using one of those interactive albums again to add more pages, more photos that you can add. So what you can do is you can actually use like an X-Acto knife and put something hard in between your, like a little cutting mat in between your photo, your page protector, and then cut around so that this can come out, but yet the rest of the page can be protected. Other people will put this right on the top of the page protector, and it's just a really cute thing. And then this one is a pocket, so the tag comes out and you can have some hidden journaling behind that. Again, here is another Timber. Whoops. Here's another Timber with a classic compass easy one, black splattering in the background. The timber had a lumberjack kind of theme with a saw and real rusticy. It had the outdoors with the bears and the animals. And so a classic grid, but adding circles to the grid for circle photos to have a different play instead of the plain square background. Loved that outdoorsy pattern paper. Timber was such a cool one. All right, here's another timber here. And they had given us some hexagon pieces. And so these hexagon pieces and this hexagon overlay was a die cut piece that came right in the kit, and I loved it, but there wasn't a companion page for this hexagon page. So I actually just cut a hexagon out of a background paper and then cut triangles to put inside the hexagon to have a focal hexagon over here. The only thing I would have done differently is when I was cutting it on the Cricut, I would have shifted the hexagon a different way, and I think I would have liked that better, but I loved the concept of that. So if you reduplicate, just rotate it a little bit. It was a little wonky this way when I finished the page. You always have those great ideas when you're all done. One more timber, and this one I thought was super cool because I found a chain link fence. So I cut a chain link fence, just one link, and then I ran like 1/4 of an inch of pattern paper, I think it was maybe even a sticker, underneath there, and then had a fun play on banners across and added more of the chain link in a circle. And so you had this nice focal piece with your visual triangle here and lots of fun splattering in the background. You have your little axe, a little die cut saw that I oftentimes will cut my die cut pieces in half to stretch them across the pages. Really fun. I think this was one of the only ones in this series that I am not certain about the name. I think it was called Good Times, but we had a different Good Times, so it might not have been called Good Times. But this one, I actually did this so long ago, but I have some really, really cute photos of my grandson that I think I'm going to put in it now, and it's called Silly Sidekick. So I just cut these mustaches out of a regular card, just a piece of white paper, and I cut a variety of mustaches out of it and then backed it with the pattern paper that came right in the kit. They had it had a digital collection, and I just wish I could remember the name of this collection. I went through everything to try to find it, and I know there's makers out there that are hollering at me right now, but it had this great overlay in the digital collection, and it had this notepad paper, and it had these funky frames. And so I thought, how fun to make it a wonky, silly page and do pictures of the kiddos goofing around. We had a great embossing folder that was chevrons here that I added to that, and lots of circles and more embossing, Swiss dot embossing, a little brick embossing folder here, and just made that so fun. And I cut the Silly Sidekick title off of out on the Cricut. Well, okay, so here's some Serenity. Oh my, I don't have to say anything about Serenity. I can't imagine there's anyone out there, whether you are close to my heart or not close to my heart, that it didn't know about our Serenity line. Why I pulled this one was it was another one of those hard to use, beautiful, gorgeous patterns. It's like a pattern that you could frame, but it's difficult to use because you don't want to slice it and cut it. You just want to keep it the way it was. Well, we had this wonderful envelope that you could fold. It was actually part of die cuts. So you could fold the envelope and create a pocket, and it had great tags you could put in it. And then we had some great embellishing twine, gold embellishing thread, and then also some pattern papers that had gold embedded in them. And I thought that was a super fun way to use that. I think it was one of those that was a double page layout also, but I didn't think that I could you know, I was going over 100 and I had to narrow them down. Again, another Serenity, a classic layout that I've used over and over. Rounded the corners, strips across, classic circle with a ring around it, and then clustering all of those gorgeous Serenity stickers. Those stickers were so crazy good. And then added some gold embellishments with the gold twine. Beautiful set. Beautiful set. Okay, we're really going back here. These pages are a little bit embarrassing. They are so back to basics, and they're very pattern-oriented pages. I probably did use a pattern from a pattern book, and I probably adjusted the pattern, but I actually am so glad I pulled these out, because now with my grandkids, I have a bunch of photos. I mean, a bunch. I'm constantly taking photos of them when we just go to the park. And I don't know why they're so cute on the swings and the slides and digging in the dirt. And so I'm glad that I pulled these out, and I'll be able to use those. But this one was called Central Park, and we had a new stitched circle set. So I just did Look at Me, and my grandson says that to me all the time. So does my granddaughters. They'll just say, Grandma, look at me, Grandma. And then we'll take pictures at the park. Basic layout, but I wanted to pull some that were way older out, so I wasn't just doing modern day layouts, so we could see a little bit of the history and the evolution of how our pages have changed. We also had these little houses, and I believe they were thin cuts. They were thin cuts that you would thin cut the little houses out. And so I just made little patchwork squares and put a house on each square. And then back then, everything was wrapped in twine. It was not complete unless it was wrapped in twine. Last one from Central Park. Again, another oldie, so simple. But why I chose to show this is I loved the play here. It was so much summer fun, and I just did a hole punch and punched the twine through and used the little cards. We had Picture My Life cards, and I think these actually were a cut apart sheet. So it might have been before Picture My Life cards, I can't remember, but we had to physically cut these apart on a sheet, I believe. I'm not sure what happened here, but I'm thinking this goes somewhere else and that this fell off. Maybe it goes like that. Yay, there we go. And it had this great paper that had the town scene on it. Here's another one from a bash. So again, an online event. I think we had 20 pages. It was called the You Are Enough Bash. So it was one of my weekend events, a classic background that I've used over and over and over. And then those layered butterflies again from You Are Enough with the vellum layer in between and just little teeny bits of the holographic paper. And on this one, I was showing ways to use our Picture My Life cards, or our pocket cards as some people know them, and use those up. This was a layout that I've used a couple times, and what you do, it's super interesting. You make one square and you layer smaller squares, smaller squares, smaller squares inside those squares. So I have a cardstock layer, a pattern paper layer, a cardstock layer, a pattern paper layer, and then back to the cardstock. And you're just adding the layers on, and then you cut the square in half, use one square on this side and one square on this side, and you can layer it as many times as you want to. And of course, I gutted each frame as I was going so as not to waste so much paper, added a zip strip across and tucked those photos in, and again, our holographic paper butterflies. And I think you could add those holographic butterflies to anything and it would make anything look gorgeous. All right, one more. I don't know if there's one more or if there's a lot more of You Are Enough, but You Are Enough was so pretty. This was so simple, and it was stamping. So we were focusing on stamping sentiments and stamping titles. And so all of these are stamped over here. You Are Enough was a gorgeous collection that was empowering, helping you to feel empowered, to feel strong, to feel brave, to feel beautiful. So we stamped over here, and then this one here was a sticker, and this was the layered butterflies again. We have that stitched border again that I had featured before, and then all of the copper that was just coming through the paper. I don't hope you can see that, how gorgeous that was on in the background. I chose this next one. It was very simple, but I chose it just to show how simple banners can make gorgeous pages. And then also, again, using those pocket cards. So I love to make simpler pages using pocket cards because you get extra title opportunities out of them. So this is just layered banners, layered with pattern paper and holographic paper. And then we had these cute little holographic butterflies that were beautiful as well. And then those same layered butterflies that are classic and timeless. And so you can see the shimmery on those, how pretty those are. Such an easy layout to do and to reduplicate if you're looking for something that's able to be reduplicated. All right, a single page here, and I drew scribble circles. This was called Wild Berry Blast, another one of our pop-up specials. And I feel like I'm a little crookedy here. Oh, I'm sorry if I have been. Wild Berry Blast. So I drew with Cricut pen on the Cricut just over and over and over. Made circles over and over. And then classic again. I've done this timeless every couple of years. I do this same style because it comes back again. And it's a completely different paper line, and it can look completely different. But Wild Berry was a color of the year, so I incorporated all the bits of Wild Berry. So we had dots, we had flowers, we had glitter gems, we had glitter paper, we had pattern paper, we had, you name it, shimmer trim. And so that was such a bright, bold color. I brought out one more of the Wild Berry Blast, and this was an SVG file. The caps were an SVG file by Paige Taylor Evans. I love a lot of Paige Evans SVG cut files, and I think that they complement all of our close to my heart papers and collections if you wanted to add a little digital art. And so this was my granddaughter Hattie Elaine, who is my outdoorsy girl. This was a very dry fall, and this is Gunner and Annie, and they are our horses out at the ranch. And Hattie I love because she always needs her little ball cap, usually her little sunglasses, and I thought this little ball cap from Paige Evans, and looks like I'm missing a little piece here, there we go, was so perfect. And her digital art, you could cut the little inner pieces out and the outer pieces out, and I think there were 5 different style of caps, and I thought these caps would be so cute as a masculine page as well, but I chose to use it with Wild Berry Blast because of Hattie Elaine's shirt color. And it was all stamping in the background. There was a stamp that came with this set, so I made the stamping, and then I added all the bling from the Wild Berry Blast stickers and die cuts to finish off the page. Super bright, bright and bold. I guess I lied because there's one more page that I don't remember the name of, and it was a cardstock only special. And Close to My Heart gave us, I believe it was a digital collection where we could cut these little pieces and just make basic pages out of cardstock. So I added a piece of dot vellum outside the photo. I think this is Hattie Elaine also. And then a little title, I believe that was part of the digital collection that they gave us. And then a really pretty flower, and it was just about how so simple a person could put together a page like this in literally minutes. There's nothing to it. You could also add stamping in your journaling, and it would be a gorgeous and simple page for a simple scrapper to do, or for any scrapper to do. Here's another funky wonky one that, you guys know I try to be brave once in a while and do something funky, but we had a VIP special after the introduction of our VIP program where you got a huge bag of these colorful acrylic shapes. So most of you know that Close to My Heart has lasers, and they have the capability to create our acrylic shapes and our craft die cuts on their lasers, and they've actually perfected that like a lot. The first ones they came out with were pretty thick, and then they got thinner and thinner and more detailed and more intricate as they learned the lasers. But we had these big packs, and I'm like, what are we gonna do with those? So I made a whole bunch of enormous Cricut backgrounds, cameras, globes, gosh, I can't remember what, a big flower. I can't remember what all of them were. And then I just taught how to layer those shapes in the background, add a little title and a focal photo, and just have a blast with that. And that was really super fun. So much dimension. Oh my word. Holy cow, this is going to be embarrassing. I think we're going to go back to probably one of the very first layouts I've ever made. Oh my gosh, it's pretty bad, but I wanted to show it because that was the style. Also, this was called Beautiful Friendship. And this was my first time learning how to use the back side of a stamp. So we stamped on the page with the intricate side of the stamp, flipped the acrylic stamp over and shaded in with the back side of the stamp. And it was just because I wanted you to see the technique. And that was just back in the day where I stamped on each little picture. I can't remember, maybe we didn't have photo place card holders, but we had a cute little telephone, vintage telephone on the Cricut, and some little doily stickers and this little chair sticker, and then these little beautiful friendship bows that stayed around for 30 years, it seemed like. Okay, it was probably only 5, but 6 or 7. But that was a fun technique, and it's a technique that is still widely used today to be a super fast way to be able to color. All right, we're coming back into some of my COVID pages. If you go to the blog, I think I showed a COVID page in the last 100 collection, or maybe it was the 100 page share from the first one maybe. But I wanted to show this one for 2 reasons. One is Persnickety Prints had all of the months. So they had every month through COVID. And so I made sure to go through and on mine that are in my album, my duplicate pages that are in my album, I made sure to put the months and what we were doing during that time and what was happening in the world. And so we had those from Persnickety Prints. We had some free SVGs from Close to My Heart that are on the Close to My Heart blog. And then at that same time, we had the Stitched Together digital collection that came out, and it made these adorable stitch Polaroids. And now that I see these, I want to use them again. I want to go back and use them again. It's like I'm reminded. And I just used season mix-ins in the back and the stitched together pieces to make the page for documenting COVID. And so here's another one, very simple one, where we received the Let's Stay Home and the Home. These 2, I believe, were part of the free digital art SVG files that are on the blog. I believe they're still there. Maybe type in Let's Stay Home on the blog, or you could even type in We're All in This Together. And maybe all of those SVGs would come up, because I think the last one I showed you the little hospital workers that we got as a free digital download. And so I added again those pieces from Persnickety Prints, and these were free printables. You could find COVID-free printables everywhere during COVID, and you could add those to your pages. Okay. Another super simple one, and the reason I'm showing this one is it actually inspired the next one. This was one, and I believe, again, one of our earliest season mix-ins collections, and this was a featured layout on our blog that showed how to just make a grid and make the grid out of circles. And I did this one as a Stamp of the Month bonus kit. I believe that it was a Stamp of the Month set that just had a lot of little designs on it. So I showed my paper crafters how to not only stamp in the background, but to stamp their own patterns. So this is stamped, this background is stamped, these lines are stamped, 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 stamped. So you can see these pieces here are stamped. I stamped on the tag. And so showing them how to literally make a pattern page out of nothing, just a stamp and some ink. And then of course a cute digital camera added to that. But then this layout inspired a layout that I think many of you, if you follow me, have seen. It's a layout, and I did a full process video on this. And we got this wonderful, wonderful window frame thin cut. And I love it so much, and it's sold out. It's really hard to come by. But I reduplicated 9 of those stitched frames and then did some as photos and 2 of them as shakers. And this was our gorgeous Cape Cod collection. And I just had so much fun putting the craft die cuts in front and behind the window. And I will link this video up in the description if you would like to see how I made that. All right, we're going to move to a little bit of summer. So we're going to take a little look at our Stars and Stripes collection. So we had $9.99 digital art that came with a lot of our collections. So in the old days, we had like $99 Cricut collections, and then we had like $45 digital collections, and then eventually they made us coordinating digital collections that actually went with the paper that was coming out, and they were only $9.99. So we had this great truck and these flowers that were on one of our digital collections, this adorable Celebrate that was on one of our digital collections, and then all kinds of splattering in the background and just making your own pattern paper by splattering and stamping in the background. So all the little tiny stars are stamped, and then it's stamped in multi-colors to just make a fun firework background, like there's just fireworks exploding in the sky. And then of course, so simple here, banners all the way across, adding a lot of little sticker banners to jazz that up, and then adding some silver stickles in the middle of the flowers. That same collection here, another banner page, simple grid style, and instead of square, 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 square all the way around, just using different components within the grid and banners all the way across. This was a die cut that came in the kit, and patchwork stars. So we had 2 patchwork stars that you could piece together that came in the kit, and then I added another larger Cricut star behind it to just make it pop out a little bit. That was super fun. And then another Stars and Sparklers here, we actually had die cut punch outs that came, and I don't know if I was doing this way or that way, but we had die cut punch outs that came in the kit to make starbursts. And so I think these were used in a different way in the kit, but I decided to put one on the bottom and one on the top to make a companion page and to make a really pretty page. And then we had these really wonderful red, white, and blue flowers, mason jars, all kinds of summery effects. And I thought that was a different play, kind of a fun play on that. All right, let's go through some masculine. The pile is getting smaller. So this was called Wander, another really gorgeous collection. I actually used all of my Wander pages for a girl trip to Arizona. And it was so fun because this pattern paper was built in. So it was a whole sheet of pattern paper that had an ombre on the top, and it had rolling sand dunes in the back. So I opted to cut part of the paper apart so that I could pop that up, and then the rest of the paper that was cut off of here, I just layered on the bottom underneath, and then it allowed me to tuck those photos under into the sand dunes and just add cricket cactus and then all kinds of little fun hiking and travel icons. We have the burning desert sun here. It had a lot of little frames, and I cut a lot of those little frames in half, and they were like chipboard, and so I cut them in half and just used them in all different places, and it was just such a fun bottom there. I really enjoyed that one, and it went perfectly with my Arizona pictures. This one I do have a process video for. This one is a little more recent, and I actually meant to show this one when I showed the VIP acrylic shapes, but I must have had them out of order. This was our Love Notes collection, and my process video for this concentrated on using up all the extra bling. So I cut a circle, added the extra bling from Love Notes in it, did some inking here on our Irresistible Resist cardstock. So you rub the ink on the Resist cardstock, you wipe it off, and it leaves great patterns, and it's awesome. Love our Resist cardstock. I did draw on or write on this with a Cricut pen because I loved the sentiment. This is my grandson, Waylon James, and it says 100 hearts would never be enough to carry all of the love that I have for you, and mounted his little peekaboo photos on vellum and then added some stitched hearts from the Love Notes collection. I'll link that process video up in the description. And then this one, again, I had the name and then it left. I don't know what happened, but the circle from the previous one reminded me of other simple circle pages that I created, and I'm so upset I can't remember this. It was a Valentine collection, but it had some masculine colors in it as well. So all this was gutting a circle, cutting another circle out of a circle and slicing the outer part out, and then adding it to make a circle and adding some twine. Just kind of a fun play on a photo circle. I did decide to show one more of those, even though it's really kind of basic and it's from that same collection. But the reason I wanted to show it is the play on chevrons and the jalopy. So I'd cut this one on the Cricut and then use the insides to carry it over and make a companion page. And then we had these great little confetti hearts that were kind of like, almost like candy. They were harder, and added a little twine. And then we had all these little tickets that came with it. And then I just welded some little shapes together on the Cricut to make this old jalopy. And then you could mount your photo inside the tailgate of the jalopy, and then use some of our silver foil paper that I miss greatly, deeply, to jazz up the jalopy there. That was kind of fun. Now we're going to get beachy again, and we had our, okay, let me think here. Oh boy. I know this, I know this, I know this, and I know you guys. Deck the Palms. So I had a Deck the Palms bash. It was an enormous undertaking because I believe I made 12 pages or 14 pages of this for a weekend event, but then this was reversible. So they gave us a Deck the Palms that was tropical themed, and then they gave us Deck the Palms that was tropical Christmas themed. So I let my paper crafters decide if they wanted to use the tropical side or the tropical Christmas side. And then we put all of them together. Some of them just did tropical, some of them just did Christmas, some of them were brave and did both sets. So this was a really busy one. And it just has all the tropical vibe going around with the series of photos in the middle, those same tropical Christmas flowers that I never get tired of using, adding some inking and stickles in some of the stamped pieces, adding stickers down here, and accenting with some black dots. And it came with acrylic shapes. So if it was Christmas, they were Christmas shapes like presents and things like that. And if it was tropical, it came with the tropical shapes. So a couple more of those super simple ones. Again, a pattern that you'll see me use over and over and over. I never get tired of it. The only difference in this one is the overlay had stitching in it. And then I added the little ship's wheel, and this was the non-Christmas version. Oh, I'm missing an S. Oh, there it is. It's over on the floor. This is so it's supposed to say this is us. And then just clustering both stickers and I think all of this was stickers except for these two little Cricut pieces over here. All the rest of them were stickers. And I loved the colors in this. One more, another classic basic grid. So easy. Just wanted to show it with the colors in the classic grid. Cluster, cluster, classic grid, large photo in the middle. So easy to scrap lift a layout like that. And then this one I wanted to show because it's identical in some ways to the one that I showed you where we put all the squares. So I said that we put layers and layers of squares, cut it on a diagonal, and put one in each corner. The difference in this one is we layered strips on the square and then cut the square and then put one on each side. So it looks like you took a lot of work to make all of those pieces. And in fact, when I was teaching it, I was trying to teach them originally how to just cut each piece on a diagonal. And then I was like, what on earth am I doing? This is making it so difficult. So I made a square, put all the strips on the square, cut the square on a diagonal, and then used them on either side. Okay, and then this was a stamp, and then these were those tropical acrylic shapes, a little bit of stamping around the edges, and it was a super simple page. The last one again, the Timber collection. I pulled this one out because in the Timber collection, I showed this crisscross pattern. And in the Timber collection, we had photos tucked down in the crisscross pattern. And so I wanted to show it again one way and then flipped the other way so that you had one of those crisscross patterns at the top and one at the bottom, basic photos, and a title with our acrylic letters. We had acrylic alphabet and acrylic numbers, and then some of those little tropical shapes. You couldn't make it any easier. So you're going to cut your specialty cardstock square on a diagonal. You're going to cut your paper on a diagonal, mount both of those on cardstock, and then you've got a cluster of 3 and a title, and you're done. A little bit of inking and splattering on the edges is all. Okay, we are on the last collection, and I'm super excited for this one. Hold on one moment here. I can't believe that we are almost through the 300th page here. I've got one more collection to show, and this was called Hope and Kindness, and I was the guest designer for Close to My Heart. And I've talked before about when you're the guest designer, there's no Cricut cuts allowed. So everything that I did in this series, this was actually a 2-page layout, but I was going to go over my 100 pages if I showed both pages. I wanted to show how you can do a play on a classic grid by offsetting papers. So you don't just have to do a photo all the way across. You could offset, like I offset the patterns in these two corners, and then did some layering of some photo mats, layered some of the chipboard pieces. And what I wanted to show here is without Cricut cuts or without a Stampin' Thin cut, you could fussy cut flowers out of pattern paper. So these two here are fussy cut out of pattern paper, and we got some gorgeous doilies with this set and also some gorgeous chipboard pieces with this set. And you could color on some wooden shapes if you wanted to. And then I did a little tiny play with folding to make a little bit of ribbon out of paper. And this pattern here, all-time favorite ever. Love it. Would take 100 sheets of it if I could find it. All right. Another basic one from being the guest designer for this one. Again, showing a basic pattern that you could follow. And then, oh, I think it goes this way. There we go. I'm like, okay, I'm not sure how this goes. Basic pattern that you could follow. I loved the craft look, but all of these flowers in the upper corner are fussy cut, and all of the flowers down here are fussy cut. Backing some of the chipboard pieces, these are fussy cut as well, and this is a pocket card. And so easy to put together. And again, cutting some squares on a diagonal here and just adding one of those corners. It was super simple. Another one that I pulled the companion page out of was just making, doing some gel pen techniques because it had the chalky background on the paper, adding those fancy doilies. And again, these were fussy cut flowers just to add a little bit of a different look up there in the corner without having Cricut cuts or thin cuts. And we are on the 300th page. Okay, so this is the end of my part 3 of my 5-part 100-page share series in honor of Close to My Heart. And again, this was a feature page of my of Hope and Kindness that I was the guest designer for. And this is what I loved about it, is this chalky background. So this was pre-printed on the background and then basic strips on that chalky background, and then inking some of those doilies, and then adding, these ones were actually thin cuts. So there was a Stampin' Thin Cut set that came with that, and we could pop up a lot of those flowers and then adding tri-blend marker onto the wooden shapes. So we did a lot of little inking with a blending brush in the background, cutting of some of the pocket cards, and then popping up some of the stickers right on top of the doilies, and then adding white gel pen and all kinds of little markering techniques inside the flowers. Let me just show you how gorgeous that turned out. This doily set is called Fancy Doilies, and it's still one of my favorite sets today. It's timeless and classic, and I will never ever tire of it. So thank you so much for watching the part 3 of 5 100-page share in honor of my time in Close to My Heart. I hope you're walking away inspired. I hope you'll hit subscribe, like, and share, and so that you don't miss part 4 of 5 next Monday. See you Monday. Happy scrapping. Bye-bye.